welcome back to episode 2 of the War and Peace Diaries. We are making progress. I still think we are in the process. I still think we are scratching the surface, but have not scratched it fully, if that can be said. Page 181, so chapter 15 of part 2, volume 1. And what that looks like is here. So I don't know what that is, like a sixth of the way through. Yeah. It's going well. We are in the war part right now. I don't know if it alternates, like every part kind of goes back and forth, but part 1 was not war, and which I explained in my previous video, and then part 2 is so far has been strictly war, so we don't really know what's going on outside of the war setting. So all the characters that we met in part 1, none of them have emerged in part 2, so none of the women, there's been no mention of any of them, and part 2 so far has mainly focused around Prince Andrei Bolkonsky's experience in the battlefield, essentially. So it's been good. I definitely think I have enjoyed part 1 more than part 2, but I'm now starting to get into part 2. I think there are like about 40 pages left in part 2 before we move back to part 3, which I really hope brings us back to high society so we can revisit some of those characters that we met in part 1. So fingers crossed that that happens. But this is going well. I think one of the things that is making it a little bit more challenging in terms of the war aspect for me is the lack of knowledge around the context of the war. So I don't really know very much about the Napoleonic Wars and how that kind of affected Russia and its allies. So I really do want to, and I said this when I started War and Peace, but I do desperately need to either read up on it or watch a documentary or movie. I know that Napoleon with Joaquin Phoenix has just come out, so I really do want to watch that, and I'm going to try watch it this weekend, because I do think it will really help and just add to the experience of reading War and Peace, because I understand that kind of wider context and that like historical setting. So that's kind of where we are right now. Like I said, I am enjoying it, and I find that once I start reading, I find it really hard to stop because it's so interesting, and the way that the chapters are written is, it's not even like cliffhanger. Like the chapters don't end on a cliffhanger, but they kind of give you a glimpse into what's going to be happening in the next chapter, meaning that you really want to just start reading the next chapter because you want to just continue progressing in the story and figure out what's happening to these characters. There are a lot of new characters that have been introduced, like generals, commander-in-chiefs, like fellow comrades of Prince Andrei. So yeah, those are kind of my thoughts. As of right now, I have plans to read a fair bit this evening, maybe finish part 2 if I can. So we'll see where we get to, but that's just a bit of an update as to where we are right now. And it's the 11th of January, so I've been reading War and Peace for 10 days now. Yeah, 9 days. I think I started on the 2nd. And I feel like I've made decent progress. Like I am reading every single day, even if it's just a couple of chapters, and I think that has been good. But I think what's been even better for me is not reading anything else, so just like fully immersing myself in War and Peace. I think the experience would be very different if I was reading I don't know, like a contemporary romance alongside this, I don't think I would enjoy this as much. So I'm really happy that I made the decision to just read this and like solely immerse myself in this book. But yeah, I'm really excited. I really want to get further into, like, I'm torn because I don't want to rush it, but I do just want to, I want to like progress in the story, and like I feel like I'm not fully, I don't even know what the right word is, it's not immersed, but I, for the life of me, cannot find the word that I'm looking for, and it's starting to wither away. It's starting to eat at my soul that I cannot find this word. But yes, let's go with immersed. I want to fully immerse myself in this, and I want to get to that point where I am constantly picking it up, like I'm struggling to put it down, and we're not there yet. I feel like I'm not fully invested in any of the characters yet. I feel like the one that I was most invested in part 1 was Pierre, who is now the Count, and I forget her name, Anna M. So this like older woman who is really struggling right now because she has lost her fortune, and she really advocates for her son Boris to have a specific role within the army. She doesn't want him to like be sent away to the battlefield, so I think he becomes like one of the guards or something like that. And I really took to her character because she's so like conniving and manipulative and knows exactly what she needs to do to get her way, and will stop at nothing to do that. So I thought she was really interesting. And then Pierre also is a really complex character, so I'm excited to go back to high society Russia to pick things up again with those characters. And I feel like once we do that, I then will be like fully invested in the storyline, because the war stuff is good, but again I think the lack of that context is making it a little bit difficult for me to kind of understand things fully and be fully invested in the storyline right now. So anyways, that's my spiel. I'm gonna read a few chapters of this right now, and then I will update you later on. I would do a little bit of an update. If my face is really pink, I've just like cleansed my face, that's why it's a little bit pink. I have finished part 2 of volume 1, so literally just finished it, so I'm here now. And so page 212, 200 pages into War and Peace, and that was interesting. So I definitely enjoyed part 1 more, just because I think it's not that there was more going on, it's just that it was more exciting, versus I felt like the war components kind of dragged up until the final couple of chapters, when there's a big battle and there's a lot going on and it's quite chaotic. I thought that was really interesting, and the plot moved a lot faster, as opposed to the kind of earlier chapters. So I'd say like the first chapter to chapter 15, 16 of the second part. I just felt like it kind of dragged, and there were chapters where I was like, I don't really kind of see the point of this. And I understand that Tolstoy's trying to depict a larger historical context, and in order to do that there are kind of more mundane chapters that need to be there for you to understand kind of what's going on, and like Russia's alliance with Austria and how that kind of works, and the kind of friction between the Russians and the Austrians and the Russians and the Germans. But I did find it, it's not that it was difficult to read, it just wasn't as fun, for lack of a more sophisticated way to put that. But the last couple of chapters were really, really interesting and quite stressful because they're on the battlefield. A lot of stuff is going wrong. Like, spoiler alert, if you want to read this, then maybe stop watching here. But Prince Andrei and Nikolai Rostov are both injured. Nikolai Rostov is injured pretty badly. Like, by the end of last chapter, he's kind of fading in and out of consciousness, and he has this moment where, I'll read you this bit. He says, "Nobody's bothered about me," thought Rostov. "There's nobody to help me, nobody to feel sorry for me, and to think I was at home only the other day, all strong and happy, and with the people who loved me," he sighed, and the sigh turned into an unintended groan. And then he says, Rostov couldn't hear what he was saying, so he is left alone in this tent with this other soldier that's like naked and warming himself by the fire. Rostov couldn't hear what he was saying. He gazed into the snowflakes swirling above the fire and thought of Russian winters at home, warm and bright, snug in his cozy fur coat with a speeding sledge, rude health, and his family with all their love and tenderness, and he wondered, why did I ever come here? And then the chapter ends very shortly after that. There are some really interesting moments though in the second part where you get a little bit deeper into Nikolai's character, but then also Prince Andrei, and there are similarities between the two, but also a lot of differences. I think the main similarity that I found is that they both have a very, very high opinion of themselves, and Prince Andrei, more so than Nikolai, has this kind of obsession with not succumbing to these kind of feelings of fear which typically are experienced in a war setting, so he doesn't want to feel frightened. There are some really bizarre moments where he describes this feeling of like joy and elation as he gets closer to the battlefield, which is quite baffling to be honest. But I thought that was really, really interesting, and I kind of marked up those bits because yeah, I just thought it was really bizarre. But I think it says a lot about their characters. And there was a part that I wanted to read to you. So this is just a short passage to kind of demonstrate this narcissistic quality that Prince Andrei has. So he says, "The news grieved Prince Andrei, but it also gave him pleasure. Once he knew the Russian army was in such a hopeless situation, it immediately occurred to him that he might be the very man destined to extricate the Russian army from that situation, and that just as Napoleon rose from obscurity at Toulon, this was where he would be raised forever from the ranks of anonymous officers. This was his first step on the road to glory. Even as he listened to Bibelin, he could see himself getting through to the army, presenting to a council of war his version of events, the army's only salvation, and taking personal responsibility for the execution of his plan." So he doesn't see himself as a mere, you know, cog in this like massive machinery that is the Russian army. He sees himself as something very, very unique, and he feels like he has a integral part to play in, you know, Russia's success in this war, which is really quite bizarre given that he is a very, very young and unaccomplished individual. The only thing that makes him different from anyone else in the army is that he comes from privilege. He's very, very privileged and comes from money, and, you know, like is a part of this kind of elite high society in Russia, but beyond that he is pretty unremarkable, I would say. So anyways, those are just some thoughts. I am going to read a few more chapters and then go to bed, and I'm very, very excited to start part 3, which I think from what I've seen is a mixture between war and like back at home in Russia, peacetime and what's going on there. So we're gonna go back to Russia and figure out and find out what the heck everyone's been up to during this time, which I'm very much looking forward to. It's been a while since I updated you all on the War and Peace journey, so I thought I would pick up my camera and let you know where I am, what's going on, how I'm feeling. So I am currently on page 274, so I have started the third and final volume, scratch that, the third and final part of volume 1 of War and Peace. So what that looks like in terms of the actual work is here. So I want to say that that's about a fourth or a fifth of the way through-ish. So far, I am enjoying it so much more than I thought I was going to. I don't know why I had this mental block surrounding this work specifically, and Tolstoy to a degree, because I have never read Anna Karenina, and I think I said I was going to read it at some point in my teens, but then I had this kind of like negative association with Tolstoy because of my experience trying to read War and Peace, so I never actually read Anna Karenina. That's on my TBR for 2024, but so far I'm enjoying it. We're still, so the third part of the first volume starts back, so it starts out of the war section, so we're back in St. Petersburg, and it kind of takes us back to Prince Vasily and Pierre's storyline and kind of what's happening there. I don't want to go too much into detail in terms of the plot because I don't want to give anything away. I am very happy that I did not look at the character tree that Cassidy sent over, because that would have given quite a lot away. Haven't looked at that yet, haven't looked at any like plot summaries or anything, just because this is my first time reading it and I want to be surprised. Like I'm really excited to kind of see what happens to all these characters that we've been introduced to, and I don't want to ruin anything. So yeah, I'm staying clear of anything that's going to potentially spoil the storyline for me. We started volume 1 part 3 back in Russia, and we went through a couple of chapters figuring out what's going on with Pierre. A few things happen that are like quite instrumental in his life and in his storyline. Again, not going to give anything away. And then we kind of moved back into the war and the battle scenes, and that is, I'm finding that more interesting than part 2, because part 2 was like solely war and like on the front lines, and we kind of left all those characters that we met in Russia behind, except for Prince Andrei and Nikolai Rostov. I'm forgetting someone. Prince Andrei, Nikolai Rostov. I think that's it in the second part. And in the third part, Boris comes back into the scene. Something that I wanted to share that I've been finding really helpful, not interesting, just helpful in terms of remembering, because there's so much going on, just remembering kind of what I'd previously read, is in this Penguin edition. So this is, I think I said in my first episode of War and Peace Diaries, this is the Penguin edition. The translation is by Anthony Briggs, and so that's what it looks like, and this is published in 2005. And this edition, something that's been really helping me, has at the very back here a summary of chapters and also maps of the key kind of battle scenes. So in the second part of the first volume, that is the 1805 campaign, and this map here, don't know if you can see that, if it's going to focus. I'm not familiar with the geography in where these battles are set, so I think it's been really helpful to have that map for the 1805 campaign to just understand and like visually be able to see the different kind of units of cavalry, artillery, etc., and how, like, in what parts they're stationed and how they kind of move. That has been really helpful for me. But then also the summary of chapters, so it's like a sentence summarizing the gist of that chapter, if you will, and that's been really helpful as well, particularly throughout the war pieces and the battle scenes, at least for me. Anyways, those are my thoughts. If you have stayed till the end of this video, thank you so much. Leave me a comment, it means the world. I got so many comments on my last video and it was just pretty overwhelming, but very, very lovely. So thank you so much if you've stayed to the end, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye.